In a recent poll here on my YouTube channel, I asked, what keeps you from getting in the shop and making and creating? And although there were a lot of answers given, the majority of them revolved around not having enough time. This question was spurred on by my personal experience over the last several years. I've experienced a lot of different stages of woodworking and different stages of life and how those correlate and how to make those work. So it started out a few years ago as just a hobby. I had a day job and it was my hobby in the evening. That's what I did. That quickly evolved into a side hustle. And then that evolved into quitting my day job and doing this full time. Well, I did that for about a year and then I had my first kid. And so I became the primary caregiver during the day, all while trying to run a full-time woodworking business at the same time. During this stage, I found myself reeling, just trying to figure out how to balance my time and how to carve out time to get things done. So obviously this is going to be different for everyone. We all have different situations, different goals, different responsibilities. So your personal circumstances are going to dictate how much time you have, but your goals are going to dictate on how much of a priority your shop time is. On my recent trip to Texas, I asked three sets of creators this question. They all have different backgrounds. Some of them are running full-time businesses, some of them have full-time jobs. So I thought it would be really, really neat to share their responses from their specific backgrounds. And I think you'll be able to relate with at least one of the three.
When I first started, and this is what I try to tell people that I come in contact with that are doing exactly what I do, and that is trying to balance the family and the woodworking, right? The passion, the hobby. A lot of us come out here and it's our release. It's something we do at the end of a work week to just kind of unwind. And when I initially started the business back in 2015, I devoted everything to it and I went all in, and I started to do that at the sacrifice of my family time. And so in 2017, my wife and I were like ships in the night, and we just were kind of going our own ways, and it was really starting to tear our family apart. And I had two little kids at the time, and so now they're 11 and 7, and they're a little bit more free range, but that also means that we've got sports and stuff like that. So in 2017, I ended up shutting the business down completely because the toll that it was taking on the family. Yeah. We moved here and a year later, and it took me another year to get started again. So now I tell people family is so important, and just you have to devote yourself to the job that is paying you, and
you got to pay the bills.
You got to pay the bills.
Yes.
Because the last thing you want to do is sell all the tools because you can't afford anything, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's anybody that I come in contact with that's doing what I do. This is important, but it's not as important as the mission that you set out when you said I do. I think, one thing that I made a priority just in the last few months is my shop layout, because I was constantly, reconnecting a tool or moving power or shuffling things from one side to the other, tripping over things. And so I ended a lot of my commission work. I priced myself out so that way I, could gracefully say no to the jobs by just putting a high price on it. Yep. So I graced myself out of that so I could really focus and prioritize the way that I wanted to be more efficient in here. And by doing so, sacrificing a little bit of time, not making the commission, I'm going to be more efficient kind of going forward. So, I think going back to the time balance, that was some time that I really had to just set aside. I think a lot of us, we are competing against other woodworkers, other makers, and so in Houston, you're traveling Houston, and meeting other makers. There's a ton of us out here doing exactly what I'm doing, and so they are my competition. Luckily for me, this isn't my bread and butter, so I'm okay not getting a job. But the jobs that I do get, I want to make sure that they're good. So I did sacrifice a little bit of the time to make the layout, work for me. And I think it's already paying dividends.
Awesome.
do get this question quite a bit because it can be really hard to make time to get out in the shop, whether you're running it as a business or a hobby. And so one of the things that's really important to us is physically doing things to manage your time. Like, don't keep it all up here in your head because you're going to forget.
You have to track it. You got to know where your time is being spent, because you might actually have the time to do it. You just don't realize it. You know? I mean, I'm sure we would all rather have an extra couple $100 in our pocket from our business than we would watch an extra couple episodes of Netflix. But unless we track our time and put it in the calendar, we don't know where all of our time is going. Yeah. So I would say that's our most practical tip, is start to track your time with Google Calendar, free apps or something like that. Just block out every 30 minutes of your day. Figure out where your time is going for a week. Don't make any changes. Just track it. Yep. And then at the end of the week, look back and say, am I proud of how many bags of popcorn I ate watching Netflix? Or
right. Am I proud of all the white space that's open on my calendar that I don't exactly know where it went? It just kind of disappeared. Fill that white space.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I recently heard, I think it was on the Making It podcast, and David Picciuto and Bob were discussing, and Jimmy was probably looking at his phone. That's what he normally does. But sorry, Jimmy, if you're watching this. But they were talking about, don't get discouraged if you only have a half an hour. Like, just take advantage of that half an hour.
Yes.
Even if it's just cleaning your workbench off, it might not seem like significant, but that's if you can get your workbench ready for your next half an hour, then you can jump into your project.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one brick at a time, for sure.
Yeah, that's good.
No, time is, the one resource you can't just find more of easily. And I think the first thing you have to do, in my opinion, is you have to look at your scope. What's your product? What's your output? Are you making things to sell and you need large batches? Or are you just doing projects for yourself? And whenever you can kind of define that, that'll help you understand what kind of time you need in the shop. If you're a batch out kind of person, you need blocks of time, and you have to limit what you're willing to output, because you need to be really good at manufacturing these 5 widgets. But if you're going to do larger projects, you have to appreciate that it may take 6 months, it may take 2 years to finish a table, and not let time make you feel compressed. So the few things, we don't have children, and I think that goes a long way. I think people with kids have a little different, but the first thing is just communication. So my wife knows Tuesday is podcast, so there's no what do you want to do for dinner? I mean, it's all expected. You're taking care of yourself because I'm going to be back here. And then it's pretty well known that Saturdays I'm doing my thing. Don't plan zoo trips. We go grocery shopping on Monday because Saturday I'm in the shop until I fall asleep. And so just establishing those 2 days as shop days and communicating and appreciating that it's reciprocal, and on a Monday or a Thursday or a Sunday, I may be doing things that I'd rather be in the shop, but it's a give and take, and communication with your family is key.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people get down on themselves, or they question their abilities. Is this good enough to put out there? And then we put all kind of phrasing on it and everything else. But just narrow down your scope and understand what your skill, your tools, and your time are allowing you to do, and be realistic with your goals. And then when you have something, put it out there. There's somebody selling furniture on Facebook right now made from 2x4s. And if they can do that, then you can sell your cutting boards. Just put it out there and let the market decide.
So thank you to Matt, Dean, and Jennie and Davis for taking the time to share your insight. I'll leave all of their information linked to below, where you can find them and enjoy their content. Overall, if woodworking or making is not your full-time job, keep it fun. It's super important to keep it fun. Since it's your hobby, if you're not having fun with it, you're not going to go out in the shop. You're not going to make it a priority to go out and do it because you're not enjoying it. So if you find yourself burnt out and it's just a hobby, take a break. Take a break for a little while, and then when you feel inspired to work on a project, get back out there and do it. But overall, keep it fun. Now, if woodworking is more than a hobby to you, or you desire it to be more than a hobby to you, then your approach is different. So you're going to have to make it more of a priority. Anything that you want to grow takes time and energy and sacrifice. All right, so here is the power tip I talked about earlier. If you are trying to grow a business, grow a woodworking business, or any kind of business, but you are treating it like a hobby, you're giving it the time of a hobby, you're giving it the priority of the hobby, you're giving it the monetary investment of a hobby, then you are not going to see the success that you want to see. You need to treat a business like a business. You need to treat a hobby like a hobby. So I've laid out the reality of getting into CNC in this video right here. And it paints a clear picture of what I did from my experience to be able to do what I do in the CNC realm of things and to start a CNC business. So click this video right here and you will see what it takes to get into the world of CNC. If you haven't subscribed, you're going to want to do that. You're not going to want to miss the upcoming content that I have. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.